All right, everybody, welcome back to Get in the Garage.
We're the music podcast.
For music lovers.
Onward we go to our next segment. This week we are celebrating 40 years with two albums that were dropped in the year 1983. The first one I'm very excited to talk about. Jeffrey, would you like to let us know?
Yes, I will.
That album?
January of 1983 saw the release of the third album of English rock stars Def Leppard. The album's called Pyromania. It was a giant album with huge singles. This album was produced by super producer Mutt Lange, who did Back in Black and a couple other AC/DC projects. This album's known for its 50 layers of guitars, its 30 layers of harmonized vocals, its stadium stomp, it's bigger than life. It is like a laborious thing that they spent a year working on, a year in the studio working on. Notably, this album has some great epic drum sounds, but almost none of the drumming is actual real drums. This is cymbals are all played by Rick Allen, but all the drums are all electronically programmed on a Fairlight CMI machine. YouTube it. It's a really cool early supercomputer synthesizer. Yeah, this is the last album with original member Pete Willis, who plays guitar on all 10 tracks, but was fired from the band halfway through the recording sessions. They brought in Phil Collin to play on everything, do guitar solos on 5 of the tracks, alongside Steve Clark, the other original guitar player. Joe Elliott's voice is it's like that Brian Johnson from AC/DC, but just even whinier and I don't know, a little more dated and all that stuff. Has great bass playing by Rick Savage. This is Rick Allen, the drummer, before he lost one of his arms in a motor vehicle accident. But like I said, you only need one arm to play all those cymbals and stuff anyway. Big songs from this were Photograph and Fooling.
Rock Till You Drop.
Stage Fright. This is the bridge album in between their early new wave of British heavy metal days into their super stadium rock of Hysteria and Pour Some Sugar on Me and all that kind of stuff. I love this album. What do you guys think about it?
I love this album.
I do not. Okay, I respect this album a lot. It's just not my cup of tea by any means. But I can get down with it. It is the stadium rock album, I think, of all time, though. It's the first. I think it's the first one in that vein that's built like this. AC/DC's Back in Black still has a lot of barroom swagger to it, where you can tell it's people playing. This is the Pro Tools model before Pro Tools was a thing, and it's very hard to do at the time. It's so intense. This album is from the minute you start, it doesn't stop, and it's at 10 the entire time. So that is this record, man. It is if they're 80s rock and roll records, I mean, rock and roll bands faltered big time in the 80s. This is a great, dense, solid rock and roll record with great, huge hit singles that crossed over in a big pop way. So it was a good thing for rock and roll. I think it was a good thing for pop. In a lot of ways, it was a lot of death nail in that old school style rock and roll, and a lot of the flash and flare of the new that came in. But I'm here for it, man. I'm here for the giant choruses. I have to say, where there wasn't the songs the big choruses I knew, that's where I was okay, and I was a little harder to listen to a little bit. But those fucking singles are so good.
Oh, they're so good.
I know you fell in love with this record.
I really did, and I really enjoyed this record, man. I loved it so much. I love the gang vocal style thing that happens, but it's just so pristine and clean and squeaky clean. And look, I love a rough recorded album. I and we'll talk about one after, but I'm into that kind of thing. I like the rawness. But this, it's just, I was watching a thing and Joe Elliott was talking about how people were well, it's too clean, it's too produced and blah blah blah. But if you think about it, it is the first of its kind, because really at the time, who are their contemporaries? Sort of the Van Halens,
I think they're
Quiet Riots. You know what I mean?
Journey.
No, I would say their contemporaries like in the real sense, are the new wave of British heavy metal, which like you wouldn't think is going to be like Iron Maiden and like heavy metal bands.
Right, but looking back, this is much more like
right.
The
So
Journey, the Boston, those kind of
but it's like it's so much more spit polished and shined, and obviously it's the precursor to.
I'd say Journey is their biggest contemporary, and Journey also released an album, a big album this year too. I can't remember the name of it, but
it might have been Evolution.
It's the one with the head on the cover.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
But for me, this is like because they toe that line of like metal and pop, and it's in my opinion, I just think that it's done so well. I love Rock of Ages, I love Foolin', Coming Under Fire, action, not action, not words. The back half, like it holds up for me, but Rock Till You Drop, and that's the thing too. It's anthemic, it's all that stuff. Every chorus you can picture 30,000 whatever people singing along with you and all that stuff. You know what I mean? It's just
Journey's Frontiers was released '83, and that
Tron.
has Faithfully on it.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
but that's what I'm saying. This has the harder edge. It has that bite and that grit to it, but it's so sellable too. It's so commercially viable, you know what I mean? It just has that.
Okay,
it has that thing, even though it didn't do.
Too Late for Love is like one of the first power ballads of its time. Every 80s band after that ripped that shit off, like too late.
But it's too
late.
It was like every 80s band after that just ripped everything off that they did.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's like the Rats and the Wasps and the Cinderellas and the Poisons and the they were like the first. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Skid Row.
In the way that Van Halen revolutionized rock and roll in 1977, in the way everybody was playing guitar, this record revolutionized the way people, big rock bands recorded records, and really never look back. This way of thinking really is the way of thinking now in recording a modern rock band, and Mutt Lange and Def Leppard produced like the blueprint for modern rock production on this record. This is it in a nutshell. The gun shell snare hits on every single snare hit sounds like a gun goes off. It's so intense, the vocal being so straight on, especially on that song Too Late when the drums are like don't be too late. It's so like, so dramatic, and like I like that they put like the song for the ladies on there, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much love and it's too late to love me. There's a lot of like, you're never getting another chance to do this, or like it's either like it's too late to love me and you're never getting another chance and this is so desperate and heartbroken, or let's fucking rock, and there's like almost no in between. The last song was pretty interesting, Billy Got a Gun. That was forward like leaning. It was the song I liked least on the record, but the most interesting one to me, because I was like, oh, this had all these sound samples in it, and the drum exit on the record sounded like a Beastie Boys like rip was about to go off, which I thought was really cool. So I mean, there's a lot to it. Also sounds like a Mission Impossible song, right? Like, kind of thing.
And this album was worked on, I think, in the studio for 11 months, and this was recorded onto 24 channel tape. They said that they worked on this so much, put so many layers on and off of it, that like the tape was disintegrating when they went to mix it.
Oh, I believe it, man.
And other fun facts, Thomas Dolby of She Blinded Me with Science fame plays keyboards on this album.
Science.
Yep. Rick Allen, like, talk about a different era really in music, but this was their third album. Rick Allen was 18 when they recorded this.
Wow.
Wow. And the rest of the band was like 22, 23.
Very young.
Yeah, crazy. And this, like, if you like this, if you think this is a big album and this is like massive and like arena rock, this is like sounds like a demo compared to Hysteria, the next album. Like this is like all the blueprint for what they learned, and then like went to the even more extreme on the next album.
Right.
What do we think as a rating of this album if you're gonna hit it? I'm gonna be honest. This is like at least a 9.
Yeah.
This might be a 9.5, but this is I'll say a 9. This is a strong 9 for me.
Yeah. I'm gonna go 8.5. But I listened to this thing front to back, and I was like, oh yeah, I love this record. This record's dope. I love this.
I'm gonna say 7.5. And this is my personal taste. This is a great record if you're into this record. I just don't like Def Leppard that much, but I respect it, man. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm just like sipping on the haterade. But yeah, for me, to sit and listen to this, my musical taste, this is a 7.5.
There you have it.
Before we move on, though, I just really fast wanted to throw out this fun tidbit. In the guitar solo of Rock of Ages, they shout backwards vocals if you play it backwards, and they say like "Down with Russia," which I thought was very fun, and rock and roll. So that was really cool. Oh no, I'm sorry, I have it right here. Fuck the Russians and somebody has herpes. So if you play it backwards, it was fuck the Russians. The Cold War was going on hard at the time.
Yeah.
So still to this day, I think Def Leppard have the right stand in their backwards vocal messagings. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Satanic messagings on the Def Leppard record.
So there you have it. Pyromania.